In just hours, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman will appear on Capitol Hill and will tell impeachment investigators he was so troubled by President Trump's July 25th phone call with Ukraine's president that he reported his concerns to the National Security Council's lead attorney.
This would be the first White House official who would actually be defying the White House's orders not to cooperate.
Vindman, an Army veteran who received a Purple Heart after he was wounded in Iraq, is the first White House official to testify who listened in on the phone call at the center of the impeachment inquiry, where President Trump repeatedly pressed the Ukrainian president to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden and his son. In his opening statement obtained by CNN, Vindman says he reported his concerns out of a, quote, sense of duty, adding, "I'm a patriot, and it is my sacred duty and honor to advance and defend our country, irrespective of party or politics." He also affirms details U.S. diplomat Bill Taylor gave in his testimony about a July 10th meeting with Ukrainian officials, contradicting testimony by U.S. Ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland. Vindman claims at that encounter, Sondland again pushed Ukraine on delivering specific investigations to secure a meeting with Trump. Vindman, who was at a briefing on the meeting, says that after this was brought up, Ambassador Bolton cut the meeting short. At that briefing afterwards, Vindman told Sondland his statements were inappropriate, that the request to investigate Biden and his son had nothing to do with national security, and that such investigations were not something the NSC was going to get involved in or push. Vindman also says the president's former top Russia advisor, Fiona Hill, also told Sondland his comments were inappropriate. They both then reported the interaction to the NSC lead counsel. But Sondland told investigators the opposite in his October 17th testimony, noting, "If Ambassador Bolton, Dr. Hill, or others harbored any misgivings about the propriety of what we were doing, they never shared those misgivings with me, then or later."
What they were seeking was to extort the president of Ukraine in exchange for the resumption of military aid.
Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has scheduled the first vote on the impeachment inquiry for this Thursday, something Republicans have been demanding for weeks.
This resolution signals that there will be a public hearing. It signals a shift where people will start to learn what is so concerning about the president's conduct.
Congressman Mark Amadei, who's a Republican from Nevada, who initially had suggested he might be open to an impeachment inquiry. Then he said he's not open to an impeachment inquiry. I had to ask him just a simple, straightforward question, whether or not the president was appropriate for him to ask for Ukraine and then later ask for China to investigate his political rivals, and he dodged the question.
Mr. Amadei, though, the substance of the things that have come out is that the president asked for a public investigation into his rivals, and also Ukraine aid was being withheld. And Bill Taylor testified. No, that's not my conclusion. I'm saying that's what's come out in everything that's come out.
Sounds like a conclusion to me, so we disagree on the question.
The president has asked for the Ukrainians to investigate the Bidens. Is that okay?
The president has asked for the whistleblower complaint to go through the normal processes, and we've seen nothing of that. So beyond that, when you say that you've made the conclusion or whatever, it's like you're a gifted guy, because guess what? It isn't over, and you already know what you think.
The rough transcript of the White House transcript that was released had President Trump asking President Zelensky to open an investigation to the Bidens.
Do you know if they've even got plans to call the whistleblower? Because I heard they didn't. Now, I don't know if that's true.
You're not answering my question about the substance of the allegation.
I disagree with your conclusion. It's a conclusion, not a question.
I'm asking you about what's in the White House transcript.
My English teacher says you've got a conclusion. So if you want to interview yourself, go right ahead. You're interviewing me.
Now, why don't you want to answer the question about, is it okay for the president to ask a foreign country to investigate the Bidens?
Why don't you do an interview instead of interviewing yourself?
The president asked on the White House lawn, on the south.
My question?
On the south lawn of the White House, the president asked China to investigate the Bidens. Is that okay?
You know what? If you don't want to interview me, then interview yourself.
I'm asking you a question. If you don't want to answer,
I don't understand.
Is there pressure? You don't understand?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for doing the best you could.
Mr. Vindman, he's an advisor to the president. He is a former Ukrainian. He wants to make sure that taxpayer money goes in military aid to the Ukraine.
I'm sorry. Why does it matter? Why does it matter where he was born? I'm sorry, Congressman Duffy. Why does it matter where he was born? Because that came up on Fox News. He's an active duty military member, an American who was awarded the Purple Heart.
I'm of Irish descent. I still love the Irish. And he has an affinity probably for his homeland.
Yes. I do want to go back to the beginning here, because it's been nagging at me the whole time here. which is that when I asked you about Colonel Vindman, the very first thing you said was he was Ukrainian. So yes or no, do you trust Ambassador Bill Taylor more because he was born in the United States? Where does the location of his birth matter? Mark Meadows, who I think you agree with, was born in France. Is he pro-French by definition? That's a pretty stunning comment you made just there. And it's remarkable and notable given that Laura Ingraham last night in her apparent talking points brought it up as well.
So I read his statement, John, and I'm sure you did as well. And it seems very clear that he is incredibly concerned about Ukrainian defense. I don't know that he's concerned about American policy, but his main mission was to make sure that the Ukraine got those weapons. I understand that. We all have an affinity to our homeland where we came from. Like me, I'm sure that Vindman has the same affinity. Or like Mark Meadows.
I'm just sorry,
France,
are you suggesting that you would put Irish defense over U.S. defense? Is that what you're saying, Congressman Duffy?
So are we saying that by giving this money to the Ukraine, that absolutely is the money that's going to secure American national defense against Russia? I mean, I don't believe that. And so he's entitled to his opinion. He has an affinity, I think, for the Ukraine. He speaks Ukrainian. He came from the country, and he wants to make sure they're safe and free. I understand that.
That's an asset for this country.
My point is the president is the one who gets to set the policy, and he's the one who looks out for America first and the American taxpayer and the American citizens, and he'll take advice from all kinds of people.
Are you saying that Colonel Vindman, a decorated war veteran, isn't looking out for America first? Yes or no?
I don't know what he's. I think what.
You can't say yes
John,
that Colonel Vindman.
All your viewers to read it.
You can't say that he's looking out for America first. You can't say that Colonel Vindman, a decorated war veteran, is looking out for America first.
He had tied the Ukrainian military money from U.S. taxpayers together for American national defense. And I think that can be debatable, and that policy can differ based on what kind of money the Europeans give, the kind of corruption that's involved in the Ukraine. I think that's all relevant consideration. And so I think there's a broader perspective that President Trump has on putting our country and our taxpayers first. And I think, reading the statement, that Vindman had a concern for Ukrainian
Congressman Dent, say, when I looked at Colonel Vindman's resume, what jumped out to me was American war veteran, Purple Heart, and a lieutenant colonel part of it. That's what jumped out to me first. And I speak French. It doesn't mean I put French first. Congressman Duffy, Congressman Dent, I do appreciate you both being with us.
I want to take you to a little snippet. This is last night on Fox News. Again, this is an Iraq War hero. Took shrapnel from an IED, was wounded, still serves his government now. This is how he was characterized last night.
Here we have a U.S. national security official who is advising Ukraine while working inside the White House, apparently against the president's interest, and usually they spoke in English. Isn't that kind of an interesting angle on this story?
I find that astounding, and some people might call that espionage.
Other people might call that a reckless smear. He was the top Ukraine official in the White House. It was his job to take phone calls from Ukraine. What should we do? What is next? What is the process? Who should we call? By everything we know, from John Bolton, his former boss, from Fiona Hill, his former colleagues, very well-respected person on the National Security Council staff, and you see that going on. Today, I find this interesting. Liz Cheney, a conservative member of the House leadership, saying, watch it.
I also want to say a word about something else that's been going on over the course of the last several hours and last night, which I think is also shameful. And that is questioning the patriotism, questioning the dedication to country of people like Mr. Vindman, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who will be coming today, and others who have testified. I think that we need to show that we are better than that as a nation. It is shameful to question their patriotism, their love of this nation, and we should not be involved in that process.
When you're at a crossroads, you have to make a choice. And this is a crossroads day when you get testimony from an insider who has firsthand knowledge of what happened. You can question him if you want. You can question his recollection if you want. You can raise the argument, is it an impeachable offense if you want. But that is interesting to me because this is going to come down to whether Republicans stay or break from the President of the United States. Liz Cheney giving no indication she's breaking there, but she is putting up a warning light to her colleagues because this is going to come public. and you're going to have public hearings, and you're going to have Bill Taylor in the chair, and you're going to have Lieutenant Colonel Vindman in the chair, and she is right there laying down a marker, be careful.